Alright, so last week I caught a nice little brown trout on a Caddisfly. I had a bigger one earlier that day, but I wasn't fishing strong enough tippet. He just ripped it right off of the leader and ran away with it. But yeah, he was, I don't know, maybe 18 plus, somewhere between 18 and 20. It wasn't like a tank or anything, but fishing dry fly line and just a dry fly caddis. He swallowed it whole and then ran away under the stumps. So yeah, it snapped the line and he got away. Anyway, I'm going to start off today doing a size 12 Caddisfly. This is a perfect size for you. 12s, 14s, probably your best bet. Although I have had luck tying them in 10s and 8s, as well as 18s or 20s, you know. But 12 and 14, perfect size to work with, perfect metrics to deal with. So, all right, I'm going to talk just a little bit about denier of thread and what you're looking for. I've been tying these lately with this Orvis 3/0. A 3/0 in translation is about 220 denier. I haven't broken this stuff yet. I mean, knock on wood that doesn't happen today, but yeah, it's relatively strong. I haven't had any problems with it. Although I have tied these before in GSP. I like GSP. It just is spendy, and I can't find my I can't find it right now. I can find 100 denier, but I have actually broken 100 denier GSP. Maybe I'm too strong. I don't know. Maybe it was just a bad spot. Like I caught it by the hook point. You know how you sometimes bring your thread across the hook point, and all of a sudden, you now have a frayed section of it. Anyway, I've just tied the thread from the halfway point on back. At this point, we're going to grab the chenille of our choice. I mean, I use quite a few different chenilles. You can use whatever you want. Caddisfly bodies are typically green. Sometimes they're yellow. But there's all kinds of caddisflies because they're related to the moth or the butterfly, but their caterpillar state lives aquatically in the river or in the lake, and they'll hatch. They'll live a month, sometimes up to 6 weeks, and then they lay their eggs on the water top. And it's not all in one clump, it's like scattered. So you'll see these little moth guys flipping around on the top and scuttling across the surface. They're real active. This is a good fly to work and work all season because unlike mayflies or midges or something else that has 48, 64 hours to live, this thing will be up in the air for at least a month. I think the shortest lifespan is like 2 weeks, but I didn't major in biology, so don't quote me on anything, except for how to tie this and how to catch some fish. Alright, so what you're going to want to do is grab some deer hair. This is dyed gray, this is from the belly, yellow, chartreuse, any colors like that will be from the belly section. But you want the deer body hair. This is tail hair. I might use this for some color in there, but the fibers are just different. They're longer. They don't have the insulation quality that these do. See, these hairs are hollow. So when I go and I cut this and I clean this and I stack it up there and I pull it tight, it'll flare up. And you'll see what I'm talking about in just a minute. I think I'm going to tie this one in all gray. I might put like a red or a brown spot on him, but we're going to just keep it simple for the sake of the video. So when cutting this, you're going to grab your scissors and you're going to really wedge it all the way down against the hide of the deer. And the amount of hair that is in between my fingers is relatively equal to about a pencil. And you'll hear them talk about pencils, or maybe even me, if you watch enough of my videos, you might hear me talk about pencil widths of fur. And that's just stacking fur. Or, I don't know, some people say Sharpies. I've also heard that, since the clump of fur is really round, it's not hexagonal or octagonal like some pencils are. So if you notice what I'm doing, I'm just grabbing the tips back here. I want to hold as little of the hair as possible, but I'm going to grab my fingers and I'm going to just pull all of that loose little hair out of there, because there's a lot of little like Velcro fuzz sort of fibers in the middle of all the hair. So if you can clean it up really good, this next part is going to flare up a lot better, and it's going to look a lot better and a lot easier for you just to manage. So if you can put the hair off to the side and pull up and around, you see how that just flares up like that? That's pretty good. We want to go do like another turn, and then we can start to sort of wiggle and work our way forward. Just like millimeter by millimeter. And you want to kind of hold this hair on top. You don't want a lot of it spinning onto the bottom. You could, spin the whole thing around and clip, but I like to just hold it on the top. I feel like it's a little less work overall. If you can just pinch this and hold this tight as you're going around with your thread, you're going to find some success. And I'm really just inching up and inching along. I don't want to have too much of it happen. And I think I'm ahead of most of my fur. I will put one wrap down that is just ahead of it. And now I'm going to grab both of my fingers and I'm going to pack this tight. And you'll hear it loosen up and slide back. And that's exactly what you want. You just want this as tight as possible. And they sell packers. You can get like a clip and do it, but I just always do it by my fingers. Maybe someday I'll invest in a packer, but I don't know. I have strong fingers. I did just a couple more securing wraps to work my thread back to where the hair is now. And now I'm going to go and I'm just going to stack another clump of hair. And if you can flare hair like this, you can really build this fly, because it's nothing to it besides that. You're going to pull this forward and it's going to be its body material, and we'll wrap a hackle like an Adams around here, along with giving a couple turkey biots for an antenna. Some people use pheasant tail biots. The choice is yours. Use whatever you got. Use what's close, what's available. I happen to have a stack of turkey feathers, so I'm really using those over the pheasant, but hopefully in a week or soon, me and my dog will be out there and trying to get some birds. So hopefully there'll be more pheasant feathers coming up here. But yeah, I'm just going to try and clean this in front of the camera as best as I can. I always find I do these videos, and I'm like doing this off to the side, where none of you guys can absorb any of the information. Once you have this pretty good and clean, we're just going to go ahead and pack the hair on top. With the length being roughly the same length, I mean, we will come in here and trim it, but if you can do it right the first time, there'll be less trimming. I mean, you're gonna trim. Don't get me wrong. There's no real way of getting around that, but you can stack this in a way that it looks a little cleaner the first time. So I gave myself 2 wraps, then I pulled down tight. Just gonna mess with the hair a little bit. choke up on my bobbin. You can do that by just twisting the thread in your fingers and working it back up. Don't want to catch my chenille just yet, but going to, with some tension, just work this forward up until I'm not catching any hair. Give it a little tug upwards. Try and just work it forward. Get to the point where you're wrapping nothing but the hook, and then you can go ahead and push it all back. Push it all back, hold it back with your offhand, and do a few wraps. Alright, this next one is going to be just the same, but I'm going to add a little dot of color to give that body just like a little spot like a butterfly wing would have or a moth might have. I mean, the caddises are really the same. Sometimes you find them in the field and they have a reddish spot on their wing, or maybe the tips of them are just a little bit brown. So I like to just imagine my own patterns, because you never really know. Who knows, maybe the Caddisflies that year will have a spot or be a little browner. The trout almost never know. I mean, if you present it right, the trout will take it. It doesn't have to look exact. It doesn't have to look totally pretty. I mean, it's nice when it looks pretty, but you don't necessarily need it to. So I'm going to do one loose full wrap. More like 2 wraps, okay? But at this point in time, I'm going to grab my secondary color. In this case, it'll be a red or a amber. We will clean this just the same way. I mean, that first pull, I took quite a bit of fur out, to be real with you, just so that you don't feel like you're wasting it at home. But if you splay this out, you see less and less of that Velcro style fiber that's just going to hold in there with static electricity. You want all of that out so that these fibers flare nicely. If all that insulation fur is in there, you're not going to be able to stack it or flare it as good as if you cleaned it out. This is going to work against you. So, 1, 2, I'm trying hard with a lot of pressure from my fingers to not have that red flare up anywhere else. I'm just trying to sweep it all back. Since I did 2 colors, it gets a little tricky, but it's not terrible. And I'm going to just lightly hold it, but really work my thread up so that I'm backed down to my bare bones of my hook shank. Trying to keep colors separate. packing it back as I go. Do 1, 2 wraps and do a half hitch just here. For instructions on the half hitch, this is how I do mine. If you can do cat's cradle and twist your fingers to make a cross, rotate it once again so you now have 2 of them. Set that back in there and pull the excess out. And there you have it. You have a half hitch. So now with all this hair sort of where I want it, I mean, I'm going to try and pack it in a little bit more. We're going to come along with our scissors and try and give ourselves a nice tent shape. We're going to cut aggressively around this mid-rift area, and I'm going to try and keep the tent going out that way. So we definitely don't want anything really on the bottom side where our body material is going to come up. We don't want anything interfering with that or in the way. So trim along the bottom side first. Do some tenting. My spot isn't that cleanest. I pulled a lot of hair in there. It's probably my fault. Definitely my fault. No one else is on this project. I'm just going to clean up any stragglers. Really like this to be neat and clean. I'm going to try and clip the body material just down so our wing is actually gray and not reddish, although a little tint isn't terrible. That's what I want. Take your time with this. If you trim it all off right away, you have nothing more to work with. So do be patient, take your time. You know, I wanted those brown spots to be just on the body. I didn't really want them in the wing. Just being careful. Really, this fly is more time probably spent trimming than anything else. Most of the deer hair flies are, to tell you the honest truth, because you don't want to cut off all your work, all the stuff you just put in there. You'd rather have it stay true. I totally cut my thread out. Well, you know, that's why I did that half hitch before I ever started trimming. I'm not in trouble. I'll just super glue it. But that half hitch should hold, you know. I'm just going to put some super glue on there to be extra safe. But as long as I wrap my thread over the pre-existing half hitch, I'm made in the shade. Nothing can come of it. Alright. So, I like the little Gorilla Glue, honestly, because it's both brush and nozzle friendly. You can apply it however you really want. I'm just going to apply it to the base, but I'm going to honestly do a little more trimming here. Don't need this spinning. I'm going to try and keep it tight and put a little brushwork in here. Put a little brushwork on the shank of the hook. This is when we do our thread again. I'm honestly going to want a nice strong wrap, doing at least 5 or 6 turns before locking in any of the material that I almost destroyed. It would have been destroyed if I didn't do that half hitch. So always save your work, always tie a knot, especially when you're changing from one process to another. You might save yourself some real headaches. Be a little more productive. So I see I still have a couple of hairs just lingering about. Try and cut those away as we pull our chenille up to make our body material. So I've got 3 wraps on it now. That's pretty secure, plus all that super glue that was drying. I don't think we're going to go anywhere. I'll cut that away and put another couple of wraps there. I'm going to cut a little more away, but just give yourself some space to clean this up. You don't want that chenille really sticking out. Now we will grab a hackle feather, and I like to judge my hackles. If I pull all my strands forward and have that line up with my hook, if the hackle reaches the barb or the point of the hook, you're made in the shade. If it's way over, don't use it. Find yourself a smaller feather. So my tip on hackle selection right there. And I've seen some people do it different than I do it, but I find it wraps easier this way. Some of those fibers are a little gross, but I'm going to tie it in right here. Trim away my excess. Alright, before you start to wind this up, I mean, I did pull that all the way back to where the wing starts, but we need to add a few antennas. I mean, I guess it fishes fine if you don't, but these help balance it out when it starts to fall, so you'll have a more gentle landing when you go to roll cast these and make them look like bugs. So if you didn't see what I did, I grabbed the turkey biots from this side of the feather, this other side. It's way too long. They'd be out there. I mean, you could do it and trim them down, but I mean, why bother? You got the other side of the feather or the other side of the quill to work with, so it's just gonna work out better. All right, I'm gonna hold these up here, do a couple wraps, see if I like how they look, try and keep them splayed apart so they do look like 2 different antennae for these things. And it's a little crooked, but by the time I put tension on it and wrap this whole thing around, they're gonna seat just fine. Yeah, that's looking good. So we're going to pull our feather. Around around, trying to keep it tight, like touching wraps, you know, and I caught myself. Don't wrap the same way you wrap your thread. When you go to finish this off, it's just going to be a headache if you go the same way. I mean, you'll still do it. It'll just maybe lose tension on it, and it will shift on you. So if you can go the opposite way, keep tension on it always, and just walk touching wraps going forward, shouldn't have any problems. You could use a hackle pliers if your feather is thinner or skinnier than this one, or shorter, I should say. All right, that's pretty much it. I mean, I'm gonna really make sure I can see my hook eye, which was questionable before I did that pushback, but looks pretty good now. I'm gonna try and clear it up, but all right. So you could whip finish, you could do any number of ties, but since we're so close to the edge, I'm gonna put them like this. There you go. I'll do one more half hitch pullover for fun. Or more or less security. And we can officially cut our thread away in good faith. Alright. I'm just going to dab it with a little bit of super glue, but that's the fly. That's it. Hope you enjoyed it. Go catch some fish.